I'm standing further away. Tripod setup's a little bit off here. But welcome to HogvilleNET YouTube Live postgame. Arkansas 97, Furman 83. This was a good Furman team in a mid-major out of the Southern Conference. Arkansas now 1-1 against teams from that league after losing here to Greensboro for the first loss under Eric Musselman in a non-conference game at Bud Walton Arena. Must now 38-1 in these non-conference games here as the preseason pick to win the Southern Conference. Furman Paladins come up short. In the pregame earlier today, I talked about this potentially being a track meet. I said if Arkansas cannot be as good as it was against Duke defensively, and there were in ways Arkansas was, but at the same time, this is a Paladins team that it reached its season average. Arkansas was not able to hold it below that. Ended up winning by 14 points, but I thought Arkansas's offense had to be good tonight as well. Regardless if the defense stood up or not, I thought they were going to have to score tonight. Obviously, you got to score points, but Arkansas was going to be good defensively to have any comfort level in this game. And this was another one of those games where Arkansas would build double-digit leads, couldn't hold on to them as Furman would strike back, fight back, claw its way back into the game. We've seen this record play out before. Arkansas some of the same problem areas, but the Razorbacks get to 6-3. It's a disappointing day coming into it when you look at the net rankings that were released this morning. I did not talk about those in the pregame show. I thought those were actually coming out closer to noon. I went on before that, and they actually came out in the morning. But the Razorbacks 117th in net, Furman at 160. So, at best, this probably has the best you can hope for that this game becomes a quad 2 win on the resume. Arkansas, by the way, now that they're 0-1 in quad 1 games, the loss in the Bahamas and North Carolina stands as that one quad 1 result. Memphis outside of the top 50 in the initial net rankings at 71. So that's a quad 2 loss. Greensboro, people were talking about as a quad 3 loss. I kept saying, hang on it. You hope they win. Greensboro is 5-1 at this point, and you hope they find their way to having a good net. 71 right now, the top. So if Greensboro finishes worse than 75th place, so they're real close, at the end of it, when the dust settles in March, that'll be a quad 3 home loss, but it's a quad 2 home loss. Arkansas does have a quad 2 win over Duke. I really felt like that would be a quad 1 win before the loss of Georgia Tech. In the pregame today, I did talk about that loss and having 3 losses. It could be close because it was a home game. You need to be top 30. That eventually I do think it'll stand as a quad 1, but right now a quad 2 win. Arkansas's only quad 2 win, no quad 1 wins, and unbeaten now in quad 3 and quad 4 games at 5-0. 6-3 on the season. The Razorbacks got off to, what I consider a good start offensively, playing to the strengths. I mentioned this in pregame. Arkansas needed to attack. I wrote about this in my keys to success in my preview story that I put out at hogville.net. Arkansas needed to take advantage of an athleticism advantage, size, length, and use that to their advantage to attack the basket. Still using good ball movement, but make sure they attack and don't settle. And I thought Arkansas did that. They got all of their bigs involved offensively, most of that around the basket. You did see another game of great ball movement, I thought, for the most part. Arkansas 21 assists, actually escalating what they did with the 17 in the last game. But Arkansas with 21 dimes tonight, shooting over 60% from the field. The final numbers there, the Razorbacks 37 of 61, 60.7%. I mentioned the 21 assists. Arkansas 8 of 19 from 3, another 40+ percentage game shooting from 3 on good volume, 42.1%. Hogs were 15 of 21 at the foul line. Most of that came in the second half. Hogs were just 1 of 2 from the line in the first half. But you finished 71.4%. So that's kind of where Arkansas's been percentage-wise. Not as good as you would have hoped for. You thought maybe this would be a better free throw shooting team percentage-wise, in addition to being better from 3. Certainly they got back on track shooting from 3. I'm going to have to readjust this tripod later. I didn't get it done. I wanted to get on here before it got too late. So this is a little bit awkward at this angle and me standing a little further back. I hope you can hear me. But the Razorbacks, again, offensively in back-to-back games now, moving the basketball, sharing it. I talked in pregame today, and I wrote about this also in when you go back and look at my preview story. Kind of maybe a key would be Devo Davis not having a breakout game, but maybe a wake-up call kind of game. And I wondered when his statistics, when you look at efficiency, shooting, and scoring, might get better. But either way, this might be a game, especially question marks around Shamar Mark's ability for Devo to step up. Man, did he do it. Arguably the player of the game. I think a couple of guys can be in that conversation with him. But 7 points, 10 rebounds to lead the team. We've seen Devo have those double-digit rebound games. 8 assists, a game-high 8 assists. You talk about helpers, 0 turnovers. This is the one thing Devo's done this year, a career low in per-game turnovers. Once again, a 0 assist game. He's had multiple of those this season, at least a handful, maybe more. In 38 minutes, at a team-high, game-high box score plus 15. Devo Davis, he always draws the toughest defensive assignment, but he just did a little bit of everything and probably had his best game of the season. Caleb Battle, a season-high 25 points, started the second half. First time he's been in a starting role, whether at the beginning of the game or coming out of the break. But 20 of his 20 game-high 25 points in the second half. It's a season high for him as well. Very efficient shooting night for Caleb, as it was for most of the Razorbacks that scored tonight, because this was not a good Furman team defensively. There was a concern in the first half. Both teams had 7 turnovers. It was only a 5-point lead at halftime after Arkansas had built a 10-point lead in that first half. And there were a couple of late turnovers that led to Furman getting out in transition and kind of cutting into that margin. And so Arkansas did a better job in the second half of turnovers. But I mentioned Battle's 25 points, but he was a box score plus 14 in this game. And then Arkansas, what can you say about Chandler Lawson? Back-to-back solid games tonight, a season-high 19 points, 8 of 10 shooting from the field, 1 of 2 from 3. But when you look at Lawson, made both of his free throws tonight, only 3 rebounds, but he had 3 blocks, an assist, a steal. And I keep calling him a connector. He was asked about the glue guy tag that the players put him. It's the same thing, and Musselman talked about that a little bit in the post-game presser, what it means to him. But it's just doing the little things that don't show up in a box score. I've always talked about that when I talk about Chandler Lawson. But tonight, plenty showed up in the box score. That scoring production against a high-octane offense. Arkansas had to be better on that end, and I think Arkansas was better on the offensive end. There were some holes in Arkansas's defense tonight, but this was a Furman team that came in shooting 62% inside the arc. And what did I talk about in the pregame? I said, you can't let that be fool's goal and think they're going to look just to score inside the arc, because it was only a 31% shooting team from 3. They take a similar volume of 3-pointers and 2-point shots, and it's by design to keep defenses guessing, get them off balance. They've got a veteran team. They move the ball well. It was a high assist team coming in. It was also a high turnover team coming in. And Arkansas tonight, when you really look at that part of it, didn't really dominate in the turnover battle. Arkansas was better in the second half. I mentioned that. But both teams with 7 turnovers in that first half, relatively close in this game when you looked at that part of it. And I thought Arkansas needed to have maybe a bigger advantage of that to win going away. Now, look, Arkansas had a 20-point second half lead, 73-53. But as we've seen, when they build a double-digit lead or what looks like a comfortable lead and maybe ready to run away from a team, the other teams are able to get back in it because Arkansas either has a string of not closing out a defensive possession with a rebound or a turnover or some, maybe a couple of bad possessions offensively. Where tonight there weren't a lot of those when you look at it from a scoring standpoint and efficiency standpoint. But in key stages of the game, I think Arkansas still has a tendency or to miss a free throw. Whatever it is, they have a tendency to let teams back in it and get on a little run. There were some defensive letdowns there. A lot of 3-pointers tonight for Furman. When you look at these numbers, 28 of 73, Arkansas did the job on the overall field goal shooting, 38.4%. The Paladins were even better from 3, 12 of 32, 37.5%. So they weren't as efficient as Arkansas, but the volume was more there. Made 4 more threes than Arkansas and put up 11 more threes. And I told you they're going to be balanced in their offense and how many shots they're going to take. And so if you take something away, a 62% shooting team inside the arc, Arkansas did the job there, kept the team way below that. But Furman did a good job of stretching Arkansas's defense out with those threes. They made their first 5 or 6 in the game just to really trading shots with Arkansas at that point. Arkansas was getting around the basket and getting easier scores. And, Alex Williams, this was only his 5th game of the year, missed the first 4 games for Furman. But he's a power forward at 6'5", can do a little damage around the basket. But tonight he was really on the mark from 3 for the most part, had himself a game. And then the Paladins 15 of 20 at the free throw line, 75%. So, this is another game where Arkansas is not, +1 tonight in free throw attempts. The previous game against Duke, -1. Arkansas prides itself on being one of the best free throw attempts teams in the country. the volume wasn't quite where it needed to be for the Hogs, and they once again they're matched by the team, the opponent across from them. So we've lost some lights in here in the background. I guess they're wanting to get out of here early tonight. We're not going to stay very long. Had some technical problems, as I was mentioning, not only with the positioning of the tripod, but even getting the YouTube to work tonight. I had to ramp it up 3 different times to get it to finally come on. So maybe this just isn't our night to have one of our long post games. But again, Arkansas now turns its attentions to 19th ranked Oklahoma. Was undefeated coming into today, 7-0. I know they've got a game against Providence this week. I don't know if that's tomorrow or Wednesday when that game's going to be played, but that ought to be a good matchup before Arkansas and the Sooners match up in Tulsa at the BOK Center on Saturday. We know this is the third matchup prior to Oklahoma joining the SEC in a year. So I guess this is the rubber match in this recent series. But, this was the first meeting between Furman. We know Arkansas and Oklahoma match up quite a bit, but that will be a quad one win opportunity, by the way. Oklahoma is ranked in the top 20 in net, and they're 19th in the AP poll. So that's a big opportunity for Arkansas to string together 3 consecutive wins. Duke still ranked, by the way, despite losing those back-to-back games, Hogs, then Georgia Tech on the road. Duke's ranked 22nd by AP. North Carolina's 9th, if you're wondering. Arkansas's 1-1 against ranked teams. Wouldn't they love, and you Hog fans love it, if Arkansas can get to 2-1 against ranked teams and start working on that net a little bit. I was a little surprised that it was that low and that poor, given that, Kim Palm and net they're not the same. And sometimes you'll see some disparities that are a little bit of a gap, and maybe some gaps wider than others, but it seemed like there were a lot of those when I compared both of them this time around. And it's one of those things where Arkansas can't plod along and drop a game here and win 2 or 3 here. At this point, they need to put together some wins and get some quality wins. Oklahoma's a great start to that. After that, Arkansas's back in Central Arkansas a week later, and the Hogs will play Lipscomb and North Little Rock at Simmons Bank Arena. And then they close December out with 2 home games. You're back in here for 2 more non-conference games. Abilene Christian, which has been a good low major school in the past. It's a team that has played Arkansas competitively. And then North Carolina, Wilmington. Arkansas has had success against Wilmington. It'll be the 4th game against a team from North Carolina. But Wilmington just a few days ago knocked off 12th ranked Kentucky at Rupp Arena. This is a team, I think 6-2. This, one of those you got to watch out for. People thought maybe Furman could do the deal tonight, but, shocked Virginia, the 4 seed in the NCAA tournament last year, and advanced to the round of 32 where they lost to San Diego State. Eventual national runners-up, a team Arkansas beat Maui last November in 22-23 season. But Furman had also beaten South Carolina on a neutral court last year, a team that won 28 games, beat Carolina by 19, South Carolina. So this is a team capable of hanging with the high majors and playing role of David. Wasn't to be tonight. I think this team, Arkansas, really exposed it with how poor the defense was. Arkansas's game plan, I thought, offensively was just fine. I think Arkansas's defense is still – I think the defense had a letdown tonight when you look at some of the things relative to Duke. I mean, Duke had won some of these categories as well: offensive rebounds, second chance points. Points in the paint in that game, Duke was +8. These are some areas where Arkansas, when you look at some of this, you think, well, Arkansas should have won by more than 14. The Hogs won the overall rebounding battle, 38-35. The bench scoring, 51-24. Huge night, again, for Battle. Had about half of those. Layden Blocker off the bench, haven't even talked about him. Another solid game for him in a lot of ways. 9 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, a big night. 3 blocks from that guard position. I keep talking about it. If you watch pregame, I talked about him just making those disruptive plays. He'll block shots, get steals, get deflections. Find ways to really get under the skin of other teams, whether it's offense or defense, because of how gritty and tough he is, and just keeps coming at you. He's relentless. But Blocker with a good game. Makai Mitchell in limited minutes tonight, 8 points off the bench, 4 or 5. Arkansas's bigs, Trevor Brazil, I talked about him, 13 points. His first of 2 threes in that second half extended Arkansas to a 73-53 lead, so a 20-point lead there. That was the biggest lead. And he only 4 rebounds, a couple of blocks, and a box +9. I mentioned Battles night. Lawson with those 19 points. I've talked about that. 3 rebounds, Brazil's 4 rebounds, Mitchell with 2 rebounds. I mean, your guards did most of your rebounding. One thing we haven't mentioned, Tremont Mark, putting out video pregame, first one to show him tonight. We got it out, some video of him going through pregame warmups. I kept putting out video as warmups continued, an hour and a half before the game, an hour, a half hour, and just 10 minutes leading up to game time. I kept retweeting and reporting that he was still going through everything with his teammates. There was no official word on whether he'd be available or not, but that he'd be in uniform. So we reported that. He checked in just under the 15-minute mark at the first TV timeout. Ends up with a good, you look at what Tremont Mark did tonight. You might think it's a little miraculous after all he's been through. He did miss the Duke game. But Mark with 7 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block. So he did a little bit of everything to help Arkansas in this game. This was another game where El Ellis back in the starting lineup, and I thought he struggled again. It's just been kind of up and down for El. He had some moments, but I thought he struggled tonight. Had times of struggling, and this is just a work in progress. We saw Jeremiah Davenport get a couple of buckets in the first half, and battle started in his place in the second half. But he's a guy that the last 3 games now, when you look at it, has picked up his scoring a little bit, getting multiple field goals. He'll make a play or 2 or 3 defensively too. You kind of keep an eye on that with him to see what his maturation is as part of this team, because this is a veteran guy. But just kind of going around the room here, we went through Devo's numbers, and Blocker, what a night for him. Blocker, another, 23 minutes. So he didn't do his work in short order. He was out there. Now, Musman said post-game Arkansas's got to finish games better. He highlighted Blocker and some of the mistakes late in games. Some of the other stuff, you got to get better at the free throw line. 1 of 4 there. This could have been a double-figure scoring night for Layden. Let's see, we're getting some notifications here, and I couldn't read them, so I had to step up a little closer, just making sure, because Trevor Brazil tonight, when I mentioned his game, the 13 points, 5 of 8 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. Those 2 threes were really close together in that second half, and Arkansas was expanding the lead there. 4 rebounds, 2 blocks, I mentioned that, but he sprained his ankle and had to come out and was unable to finish the game. And you saw him limp off the court. Musman gave an update afterward, after the game was over. God, Arkansas is just, it's one thing after another with injuries with this team. When you get one guy back and another guy exits, and it's just been tough. But he said it was a pretty severe sprain. He said it was serious. I think that was the word Musman used, was it was serious. And he said there'd be a lot of evaluation in the next 24 hours. That's obvious. Sometimes you have to wait for swelling to go down, and you don't know when you might get more answers on a guy like Trevor Brazil, who's meant a lot to this team. And the last thing you want is to be going into a game against Oklahoma, a game like that without him. Arkansas was able to beat Duke without Tremont Mark. I don't know that Arkansas, what they'll be able to do without a Trevor Brazil, because they had to find out too many times last year. It was last year when Arkansas had to play Oklahoma. And without Trevor Brazil, he was hurt before that game, but they got Nick Smith Jr. back a game or 2 before that. I think it was Greensboro that he helped beat when Brazil went down, and before that he had played a game or 2. Yeah, because he played against Troy, and then I think it was San Jose State. So I think at that point against Oklahoma, Nick Smith Jr. had been back 4 games. So looks like Tremont Mark's back for that game. Will Arkansas be without Trevor Brazil? We just don't know. We've seen Arkansas put puzzle pieces together and play without some of their key guys, some of their best players, and find ways to win big matchups. This Oklahoma team's better than last year's OU team, just the way it looks right now. It's a team that hasn't been beaten yet. We'll see what happens with Providence before we get into that game. But Furman, again, give Furman respect, 160th ranked in net. That's a team picked to win its league. We know Greensboro's a good team as well out of that Southern Conference. This was a good win for Arkansas because you won, and you got out of here with a 14-point win, so it was a little bit of a double. You didn't truly win going away. I know Arkansas had a couple of easy scores late. Maybe they could have just run the clock out. But Furman was able to get it to a single-digit deficit after being down 20. I think they got as close as 7 or 6 points. So to double that back up at least and get it to 14 is something. This was not a good defensive team again. These were, and where Furman really handled Arkansas, not only the 3-point shooting tonight, Arkansas just didn't get it done there defensively. But I thought getting to the free throw line, the fouling continued. I mentioned that in the pregame earlier today. Arkansas has been doing that a lot. They need to try to limit that and maximize their own free throw attempts. And tonight they couldn't get separation there. But the offensive rebounds, Arkansas, again, 38-35 on the boards, winning in total, just like it did against Duke, but -9 on the offensive glass, 15-6, Second chance points, Furman doubled up Arkansas 12-6 there. And we know from shooting from behind the arc, there was an advantage there, not from a percentage standpoint, but a volume of makes and takes standpoint. And for a team like Furman that's going to play inside and out, typically they do better shooting inside the arc than they do from three by a lot. Tonight, because of that volume, and they came in averaging 8 a game, so it wasn't like they were paltry from three. It's just their efficiency was up and their volume was even up. +5 over the season average of 27 attempts. They got to 32. +4 in makes, 12 versus 8. So for the three-point line and offensive rebound, I think we're both continue to be problem areas for Arkansas. The Hogs did a good job defending the three against Duke, but had another poor game in that one on the offensive, keeping teams off the offensive glass. So, Oklahoma, that's one of the things. If you go back and look at these teams that Porter Moser coaches, they're always renowned for a few things: getting really good shots on goal and having a high field goal percentage, and then offensive rebounding. So those are two of their staples kind of year in and year out. And so, that's not the greatest matchup for an Arkansas team that's still figuring things out and not always a cohesive group defensively, and then cleaning up the defensive boards. All right, we're 21 minutes in. I hope Trevin is okay and we get him back for the OU game. Yeah, I hope the same as you. Obviously, anytime it's an ankle sprain, if it's a high ankle sprain, usually those take a few weeks, typically. When Musman said it was a serious sprain, that's concerning. That's concerning because it's more than a tweak. You see guys tweak an ankle, and a lot of times they come back in and play through that, and it's a minor thing. Trevin was not able to do that, and when Musman says serious, then we, taking him at his word, we don't know. It's still speculation. But you have to think that this could be something that keeps him out. I mean, there's not weeks in between this game. There's just a few days, a handful of days. And so you hope the best. You hope that he's ready to go. Arkansas is still figuring things out. I asked Musman postgame, this may be the deepest you've gone even into your non-conference. When you've added up how many games have been against good competition and the games are fairly close or competitive, or you might, you don't have a 20, 30-point lead for most of it and you're just building on it. I said, this might be the most I've seen you play guys in both halves, multiple games. He played 10 players in the first half. That is unlike Musman. He does that some in non-conference when Arkansas's got comfortable leads, or it's obvious they're going to have a comfortable lead. Some of these better teams, he's had to do that. North Carolina, you saw it against Duke. You saw it again tonight when the game was still tight, kind of letting a bunch of guys play. And I knew what the answer was coming to, but I just wanted to hear it from him. Are you expanding your rotation a little bit because of the fact that you've got so many different pieces that work in different ways and you're still figuring out game to game what works best? Or is this just a matter of some of the other talking points Musman's gone through about certain guys just not getting it done, and he's just having to find the next guy, kind of like a Rubik's Cube. You're trying to solve it. And he said it was the latter. He said, I'd like to talk about the depth and the quality being the reason, but he goes, really, we got to find the next guy to get done what we're asking to do. When this guy and then the next guy, 2 or 3 guys aren't doing it, we got to find people that do. So, it's a work in progress right now for these Razorbacks, and it's part of why you lost 3 games out of 4. The ball movement's better. I talked about that. The 21 assists tonight, that's a big time, especially when you look at 37 made field goals. You assisted over 50%. The previous game, almost 17 on 26 made field goals. So, your high percentages now, like your opponents were doing to you. Now Arkansas is getting a lot of assists. The Hogs, Furman's a team came in averaging 18 assists per game. They made they got 15, so they were close, scoring 83 points. They came in averaging north of 82, so they hit their number, and they were close enough there in the assists. And I didn't think Arkansas got enough cushion. I mentioned at the free throw lines and free throws attempted, but also the turnover game. I thought Arkansas checked up short there relative to what I thought it could do against a team that was not a good ball handling or ball protection team coming in. This was also not a good rim protecting team. Arkansas with 10 blocks, again, another big block night, 10-1, big disparity there. Both teams finished with 7 steals. So this is, again, Arkansas in the turnover battle. You really thought having better athletes across the board, for the most part, the Hogs will be able to find a way to play to advantage there. And that was too much of a break even. And again, the free throw line and then the 3-point line just really, that was the difference for Furman in this game, to not completely get run out of the gym. Because it could have been 30 had this team not been shooting its normal percentage, hovering around 31%. It could have been a much uglier deal there. But you got to credit Furman for that. You also got to look at Arkansas now and go, what's going on here? You can't just take one thing away. You really got to be better than Arkansas has maybe been in several areas. You don't have to take everything away, but I think you got to take more away than Arkansas is doing right now. Oklahoma wins Saturday. Okay, there's a prediction. Are you saying Oklahoma's going to win, or Arkansas is going to get a win over Oklahoma? Looks like you're saying Oklahoma's going to win. I'm not sure about that. But everybody's got a right to opinion. That's a really good basketball team right now. That's not a bad pick. But I think Arkansas, we'll see about Brazil, but also I think Arkansas has been figuring out lately how to get by without guys. That might be too good of an opponent on a neutral court to expect Arkansas to run away with anything. Devo Davis, something about Devo. I'm sorry, I missed that. It came off the crawl really fast. All right, we're about 24 minutes in. I'm not going an hour tonight, 25 minutes in. Yes, Oklahoma win. Does Devo seem like the same player as last year? I was hoping to see him shoot better. Well, look, he's impacting games. Again, the turnovers are low. I really paid attention to him tonight. There were some times he could have jacked up a shot and thought better of it. When you look at his 8 assists, he got him in half court, he got him in transition, the 10 rebounds, no turnovers in 38 minutes, and he scored 7 points. I mean, this is a game where you've got plenty of offense. This team's a little different, too, than the last couple of years when Devo had to assert himself at times, even in games where he had to take over. I don't know that Arkansas needs as much of that with him with guys like Battle, Tremont Mark. To some degree, L. Ellis, he's up and down right now, struggled again tonight. So, he's still a work in progress. Another thing I talked about in pregame, I'm like, it's good to see him bounce back against Duke. It's a little too soon to say he's fully turned a corner. I think you could say that about a lot of guys. I think the encouraging thing is back-to-back really good games from Chandler Lawson. He had a good game against Stanford. It's kind of hard to remember that because Arkansas lost 2 straight after that to Memphis and North Carolina. So if you look at 3 of the last 5 games, Lawson's been pretty consistently good. You want to see more consistency, not just 3 out of 5, maybe 4 out of 5 games where he's bringing it. And, not everybody's going to be having it be on every single night, but you want more consistency from guys. But I thought Lawson is one of those guys that's been stepping up of late. I think Layden Blocker, although he's going through some freshman growing pains, overall, his value, 9 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks, speaks plainly enough to all the little things he's contributing. Wow. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. That's kind of a neat effect behind us. All right, 27 and a half minutes in. I'm not going past 30 tonight. I promise that I won't. But the Arkansas Razorbacks now 6-3. They've won 2 games in a row, back-to-back wins after losing 3 out of 4. And so they've got a winning streak going now. You've knocked off a Duke team that's still ranked. That still has the potential to circle back to being a quad 1 win. You would love to beat Oklahoma. That would be a quad 1 win. And now you're starting to give yourself some momentum to finish out December the right way and get yourself ready for it. It's going to be a brutal 18-game SEC slate. You start at home with Auburn. You go on the road for back-to-back against Georgia, Florida. Then you come right back home, and it's Texas A&M, a team picked to win the league or at the top of the league up there 1 or 2, and a team that's still ranked. So you really need to make sure you take care of business to close out non-conference. Now that you've already got 3 losses, Oklahoma's not going to be easy. You could be looking at loss number 4 there, but Arkansas can also win these next 4 games to close out December and get into league play. And if Arkansas does that right now, 6-3, they'd be 10-3. Surely their net's going to get better. Potentially the Duke game, by the time they go into league play, Duke's maybe back in the top 30. I don't want to speculate or predict because I don't know that's what will happen. But your resume can look a lot better in just a matter of weeks as you break into then January. And we know there's a lot of time between games for most men to prepare, for guys to heal and get better, because you're not playing 2 games a week all of a sudden. You played Duke. You had 1 game last week against Duke, and then you get in December. It's like that. You had a Monday game, then you're going to have Saturday. You got several days, 6 days, 5 days in between. Then you don't play until the following Saturday against Lipscomb in North Florida. And you've got a couple of games to finish out December here at Bud Walton Arena. So you've got more time to deal with injuries, to recover, to game plan. Arkansas's got a great shot here. It starts with Oklahoma on Saturday. They took care of business against a Furman team capable of rising up and upsetting anybody. Arkansas was the superior team tonight. Sometimes it didn't always look that way. That tells you that Arkansas is working on plenty of things, and Eric Musselman's still got his work cut out for him as well, as he still tries to get his team to play like it's done in previous years where they didn't just get over a slump with a win or two, but they really started building momentum and stringing together multiple wins. And the eye test told you they were getting better in all phases of the game, especially defensively. I think that's still very much a work in progress. I don't know about this team's toughness. Again, physicality around the basket, getting those rebounds to keep teams off the offensive glass, not having those self-inflicted wounds, not all those extra fouls that put teams on the line so that they're evening you up there. The turnover battle's still an issue. Arkansas was better in the fast break department in the second half. Ended up plus there for once, 23-16. Both teams, though, a lot of transition offense in this game as it turned out. All right, 30 minutes in, I'm going to sign off. The Arkansas Razorbacks moved to 6-3 with a 97-83 win over Furman. 4-5 the Paladins are now at Bud Walton Arena in Fayetteville. Next game, Arkansas will play Oklahoma, 19th ranked, top 20 in the NCAA net, still unbeaten. The game against Providence upcoming before the Hogs, but that'll be in Tulsa at the BOK Center on Saturday. 3 p.m. is the tip time, and that'll be televised on ESPN2. Until we see you then.